What is personality theory and how can that help you create more relatable characters? We're going to talk about that today. Welcome to Allie on Life, where I believe that every life is a beautiful story and I want to help you tell yours. Today, we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics. I am a personality type geek. It's just something that I have always loved. I've always had a little bit of an interest in psychology, behavioral psychology, and all that kind of thing. And then I was introduced to personality theory as a way to help develop more interesting characters. And then it just got to be a thing that I get really excited about. Today, we will talk about how personality theory can help you create more relatable characters. And that can be in fiction, it can be in nonfiction, and it can be in sales because no matter what you're doing, you're telling a story that is about people and you're telling it to people. And so, how can knowing a little bit more about people help you with that? And then we're also going to go over a few of the different personality theories as well as my favorite for developing characters. So, first of all, what is personality theory other than something that is difficult for me to say? It is a branch of, I believe, behavioral psychology, if I got that correct. I'm not a psychologist. I'm just a geek who enjoys looking up things and doing some research and some reading. But it is developed as a way to get insight into the human mind, the human psyche, and how we process both the way that we are designed as people and also the way that we react to the environment around us. Kind of depends on what school of thought that you ascribe to in that, but personality can be something that's sort of hardwired into you when you're born. It can be something that you develop over time. I believe personally that it is a little bit of both. The reason I believe that is because I think we're all wired a certain way in our brains to think and react a certain way to different circumstances. But then depending on what those circumstances are, we may be groomed or adapted so that we can, survive the place and the people that we are around when we grow up and as we go through life. And those things can have an impact on our personality or the way that we interact with people and with the world. Now, of course, this is a whole branch of psychology. People can go way, way deep into it. I have no degrees in any of these fields, and so I'm not going to go that deep. I just really find it fascinating because I am an observer of people. I love to notice how people react to each other, and I notice how people react to their environment and the world. And so personality theory is just one of those things that I'm naturally drawn to because it gives me better insight on how and why people are the way that they are, and just the conversations that they have, the way that they react in stress or in happiness or in all the different things that we do in life. You can see this if a small group of people, for example, all experience the same exact thing at the same exact time and yet have different reactions to it. And not only different reactions, but they would have a different description of the event when asked about it later. They all interpret that through the lens of who they are. And your personality is a huge part of who you are. That is a very broad, unprofessional description of how personality theory works. Now, how does it work for writers and how does it help you write better and write people better and characters better? Well, if you have a good understanding of people, how they react and how they think in different circumstances, it can give you added insight and make your characters more relatable. Now, that can be a character that is, you perhaps in like a story that we talked about when we were talking about how to craft a great story. You might be the character. You might have other characters in your story. You might be not really necessarily telling a story with characters. You might be just trying to sell something. But in that situation, the person that you're selling to, who you may or may not see, might be that character. So how do you plug into what they're thinking and how they're reacting in the situation? Personality theory can help you a little bit in figuring that out. As far as creating fictional characters, this is where I really get excited about all of this because when you know your character, when you've looked into what kind of personality they have, how they are wired, how they were raised, and the different things that they naturally do as a part of their personality, then it's much easier in a scene or in a dialogue or in a dramatic event to really paint a picture of how that character reacts. And you want them to react in character, which means really according to their personality. And it's always really weird, right? When we're watching a movie or reading a book or something and something happens and you think, that character wouldn't do that. That just seems wrong. It's out of character for them. When you know their character and you know their personality, it's a lot easier to write it and make it relatable. This also helps me out a lot when I am stuck when I'm writing. When I get to a certain part of a scene and I think, so what happens now? I can think about my characters and I think, okay, so-and-so is this type of person. What would this type of person do in this situation? And then I realize, oh, this type of person would do this in this situation, and we can go from there in the scene. If you have any questions about personality theory, ways that people look at that, I am going to include some of those links in the description because like I said, I'm not an expert, but I do know some people who are, and so I will share some of the great resources that I have come across in my life and in my geeky study of personalities. Now, if you've decided that personality theory is something you want to look into as you're writing your stories, what are some of the branches of personality theory? There are a few different types. In fact, well, there are a lot because people are studying other people a lot. And so there's new ones coming up all the time. And there's also ones that have been around forever. So the Myers-Briggs personality type is not my favorite. And it's only because I don't understand it. I've never understood it. I've tried. I can't keep track of all of those letters. I don't know why, but like I don't know what they all mean. And I don't know like what order they go in and which one I am. I'm like an E, N, F, P or something along those lines. I'm not sure exactly because I don't get it. But it is very popular and a lot of authors love it and use it to develop their characters because you have 16 different types there. And so you can really get into a lot of different nuances as far as that goes. 16 personalities, it kind of comes out of the Myers-Briggs, and it's a way to explain it a little bit more simply without all of those letters. They're still there. It's just they put other labels on top of them. And that one makes a little bit more sense to me, but I still don't totally get it. Another one is DISC or DISC personalities. Then you have 4 quadrants with your D, I, S, and C, and they mean different things. And again, they're letters and I can't remember what they stand for, so I get confused. You can look it up, but it's a little bit more simplified because you're usually like 1 dominant and 1 subtype. So you'll have 2 letters instead of 4, but it doesn't go as deep as the Myers-Briggs does because again, 2 letters instead of 4. And I always got really confused about what I was because personalities are a little funky like that. And sometimes you can't quite put people into one of 4 boxes. Another way that the DISC personality theory is described is like in terms of animals I've heard, like a otter, golden retriever, lion, and there's another one. I can't remember. But again, you could look that up and some people are really into that one. One that I've heard of recently is called the human design theory, I believe. And I haven't looked into that one at all, but there's some different descriptors for how they describe people and their personalities. That one actually seems kind of promising and I might look into it. And then there is my favorite, which is the Enneagram. I love the Enneagram. I'm a huge Enneagram geek. And I will say, you know, the Enneagram gets a lot of attention and a lot of controversy. It's not because it's weird. I think it's just because of the name of it and the fact that it's got a really funny symbol. But the reason for the funny symbol is because there are different numbers and different lines and ways that the personalities interact with each other. And so you have all those connecting lines in the Enneagram symbol. It's actually pretty complicated. And that's why I love it. It's very complex and robust, and it really, I feel, does a great job in actually describing how we are as humans and how we interact with each other and how we interact with life and how we grow and change and kind of lean into one personality type or another one, or get healthier or less healthy, how we react to things when we are mentally healthy, mentally stable, and all of those kinds of things versus how we react when we are less healthy. I like to think of it as like you have your number because that's the Enneagram is built on numbers, but there's like a sliding scale of where you can go up and down on your number as far as levels of health, or they would call it integration or disintegration, like as you're crumbling into stress and psychosis, which hopefully you're not doing. But there's all of that nuance in there. And then you have like wings where, you know, you might be one number, but you kind of lean one way or the other. or you go toward different numbers in stress or in health. It's pretty fascinating. And because of that, it's my favorite. I was first introduced to the Enneagram as a way to develop characters. And so that is always my primary way of using it, but it's also really helped me in my own life to kind of see how other people are and how to maybe best react to them, and also understand a whole lot about myself and like my core fears and desires and the things that motivate me and the things that I shy away from, because it's really an interesting study. And I love building characters this way because you can say, okay, my character is a 6. And because my character is a 6, and let's see, they're going to start out kind of unhealthy because they have an arc where they're growing as a character. So we're going to take them from, let's say a level 6, or maybe a level 5. So in the course of the story, they're going from this kind of person to like this kind of person who's a more healthy version of that personality type. And what kinds of things would that character have to encounter in order to move in that direction? What kinds of things could happen to that character that would cause them to feel unhealthier and have obstacles that they would have to overcome or lessons that they would have to learn? And then there's lots of ways that they can interact with the characters around them. And you can do it in varying levels of depth as well, which I really appreciate. I one time wrote a story and my character was a 6. And then I developed the Enneagram numbers for probably 6 or 7 of the supporting characters in the story as well. And for her, I took it really deep. I was like, she's a 6 and she's at this level and she's this wing and all of this. And I had a very deep description of who she was as a character based on who she was on the Enneagram. I didn't do that as much with some of the supporting characters. Like, for example, her dad. I knew what number he was, but it didn't really matter as much to me if he was healthy or unhealthy or any of those kinds of things. He was just sort of a basic 7. You can also get into like the core fears, the core desires, and how those things were shaped in the course of this character's life in the backstory or in the story that you're writing. There's just a lot there. And so that is why I love the Enneagram. But in my opinion, it really doesn't matter what personality theory that you pick because they're all great in different ways. They have different nuances to them, and so you can use them in different ways to develop your characters. One thing I do want to caution against, though, as far as personality theory, and that is the temptation to put people in boxes. No one likes to be put in a box. So if you become a geek in the Enneagram, or in Myers-Briggs, or in human design, or disc theory, or any of the personality theories that are available and out there to study, just don't go around in your life and label the people around you and say, well, you just reacted that way because you're a blah, blah, blah person. Because if you want people to like you, and I mean, who doesn't, right? It's better to get to know them for who they are, period. Beyond their Myers-Briggs type or their Enneagram number or their disc personality style, or whether they're a golden retriever or an otter or whatever the other options are there. The key to personality theory and to dealing with people in life in general is to pay attention, get to know people, understand their likes and their dislikes, and the ways that they operate, the ways that they interact in the world, and the reasons for that. If you can understand that about people, whether you're studying personality theory or just studying the people around you, you can create much more relatable characters in your writing, and that will make better writing. And better writing makes a better world. Well, what do you think? What is your favorite personality theory? Do you have one that I didn't mention? Do you want to go ahead and tell me what all the different Myers-Briggs types are and what they mean? Or the disc types that I've forgotten and all of that? Because I would love to talk more about it because it's one of my favorite things to talk about. So please make some comments and let's have some conversation regarding that. If you enjoyed this video, and if you're interested in hearing a little bit more about some of these types and how they work, I might be able to make a future video about that. If those things might interest you, comment on that as well. And if you enjoyed this video, please like it. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell if you want to be notified when I make new videos. I do generally put videos out on Sunday evenings, so be watching for the next one. And that is all for this one. So thank you for watching. Now get out there and tell your story because someone needs to hear it.